I want to link this to writing equations, because that's why I skipped all those other topics, so that we can really understand how to write equations. So let's look at the ionic equation of Na and Cl. Now we know that Na is in group 1, so Na is in group 1, and we know that Cl is in group 7. So because it's in group 1, that means it's got 1 electron in the outer shell, which means that it'll lose 1 electron. Now if it loses 1 electron, that means it will become positive by 1. So this will become, the sodium, once it loses that negative electron, will have a charge of Na+. Now with chlorine, is that chlorine is going to have, it's got 7 electrons in the outer shell. It's going to add 1 negative electron. So if it gains 1 negative electron, overall, by how much has it become negative? Well, the answer is there. So chlorine will become negative by 1. So what you're saying is these two, you're going to add them together. And the way to do that, so if you have Na plus Cl minus, what you're going to have? Well, here, this negative charge means negative 1, and this positive means positive 1. So if you change the numbers over and swap the numbers around, so give this number to sodium, that's going to be Na 1. So you don't need to write a 1 there, because 1 is just Na. And you're going to give the Cl, you're going to give the chlorine this number here, which is 1 again, so NaCl. So what you can say is Na plus Cl is going to make NaCl, and that's the equation. Now let's go through a different example now. Let's say you got Mg, right? Now Mg, I know what group it's in, but I'm going to show you it just to prove it here. Mg is here, it's in group 2. So here's Mg, it's in group 2. Alright, so there's Mg in group 2, and here is chlorine. We've already looked at chlorine, it's in group 7. So what does this mean in terms of writing equations? Well, what this means is that this is in group 2, right? So this is in group 2, so it's going to lose 2 electrons. So if it loses 2 negative people from its class, what's going to happen? It's going to become positive by how much? By 2. So Mg is going to have an overall charge of 2 plus, because it's getting rid of 2 negative electrons. While chlorine, on the other hand, is in group 7, and so to make it a full outer shell, it's going to need, because remember this is a non-metal, and non-metals accept electron, so to make it a full outer shell, it's going to need 1 electron. Now if it has that 1 electron, and it gains that 1 electron, what's the overall charge on chlorine? Well, if it's gaining something negative, it's going to become more negative. So it's going to become chlorine minus. Now remember, when it's just minus there, that actually means minus 1. But we just call it minus just to avoid all the unnecessary numbers. Now, when we cross these two ions over, remember we're crossing the numbers over, let's see what we get. So we're going to give that number to magnesium, and magnesium's number to chlorine. Right, how many magnesiums do we need? We're going to take this number 1 over to magnesium, so we're going to need 1 magnesium. How many chlorines? Well, we take that number 2 over to chlorine, and it's MgCl2. So what we can say is that magnesium plus chlorine makes magnesium chloride. And what you learn later on is that this is diatomic, but we'll cover that when we get to it. So Mg plus Cl2 makes MgCl2, and what you'll notice also is that all of the chemical equation is balanced. So you've got 1 magnesium here, 1 magnesium here, so they're balanced. You've got 2 chlorines here and 2 chlorines there. So it's, let's say you've got potassium, and you're going to react it with oxygen. So the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, what group is potassium in? So potassium is in group 1. Here it is. Let me highlight it for you. potassium is in group 1. Right, here's group 1, that's where potassium is. Now let's find oxygen. Oxygen is in group 6. So let's see if we can work through this one together. So potassium is in group 1. Oxygen is in group 6. Remember, this is the metal, so I'm going to write metal here, and this is the non-metal. Write non-metal at the top. Now, this is going to lose how many electrons? 1, because it's in group 1, it's only got 1 electron to lose. So if it's going to lose that 1 electron, is it becoming positive or negative? It's going to become positive by 1. Now, because oxygen is a non-metal and it's in group 6, it needs to gain electrons, but the question is, how many electrons does it need to gain in order to have that full outer shell of 8? Well, the answer is it needs to gain 2 electrons. So now, if it gains that 2 electrons, by how much will this become negative? Well, it's going to become negative by 2 electrons. So it's going to have a charge of O2 minus. The last bit is let's cross over the numbers. So let's see how much potassiums we're going to have. Well, we're going to have 2. So that's K2. We need 2 potassium. How many oxygen? Remember, if it's just a symbol, that means number 1. So we need to cross over this number to oxygen. How many oxygens? 1 oxygen. So the formula is K2O. So that's K plus O2. Again, oxygen is diatomic, which makes K2O. Let's do calcium, which is here in group 2, with iodine in group 7. Right. So calcium is in group 2 and it's a metal, so I'm going to have my metal here, and it's calcium, which is in group 2, and I said it's going to be with iodine, which is in group 7, and it's a non-metal. So how's this going to work? So it's got 2 in its outer shell, it's a metal, so it's going to give those 2 away. So if calcium gives away 2 electrons, it's going to have a charge of 2 plus. With iodine, so iodine, just write the I, it's going to be 7 plus something is going to give us a full outer shell of 8 electrons. Well, we need 1 electron, right? So iodine is going to have a charge of -1 because it's going to gain a negative electron. It's going to gain that stupid kid that nobody wants in their class. No offense to annoying kids. So you go over here. So how many calciums are we going to have? Let's have a look. We're crossing the number over, so that's 1. And let's have a look here. How many iodines are we going to have? Well, we need to have 2 because we're crossing that number over to the iodine side. So the equation is CaI2. So in other words, Ca plus I2. And again, guys, you're already learning the fact that all of the group 7s exist as diatomic elements, but I'm definitely going to tell you that later in a different video. So Ca plus I2 makes CaI2, and you've got 1 calcium, 2 iodines, 2 iodines. So the final thing, what I want you guys to know is that initially they have charged ions, right? And then once they react, the compound is overall neutral. There's no charge on them, so the charges end up cancelling each other. Now, one other final thing, a positively charged ion is called a cation. The way to remember that is cations are positive, just like pussycat, right? And the negatively charged ions are called anions. So you've got cations are positively charged ions, usually metal, and anions are negatively charged ions, often non-metals. And that explains ionic bonding.